The stranded engineer when technology fails. Humanity adapts. Transport ship Meridian Explorer shuddered violently as it dropped out of hyperspace. Its hull groaning under stresses no vessel was designed to endure. Marcus regripped his acceleration couch as warning klaxons screamed throughout the passenger compartment. Red emergency lights bathing everything in an ominous glow. All passengers, prepare for emergency landing procedures. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the intercom, barely audible above the cacophony of failing systems. We've lost main power and navigation, impact in approximately 4 minutes. Marcus closed his eyes and ran through his mental checklist. At 38 years old, he had survived 3 different colonial disasters to pirate attacks, and countless equipment failures during his 15-year career as a terraforming engineer. This was just another Tuesday in the life of someone who helped humanity spread across the stars. The irony wasn't lost on him. He specialized in making hostile worlds habitable, and now he was about to crash on an uncharted planet with nothing but his emergency kit and his wits. The impact came like the fist of an angry god. Marcus felt his body slam against the restraints as the ship plowed through what felt like forest canopy, before skidding across rocky ground for what seemed like an eternity. Metal screamed against stone, systems exploded in showers of sparks, and then suddenly everything went silent except for the hiss of escaping atmosphere and the groan of settling wreckage. Marcus hung upside down in his harness, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. His left arm was definitely broken, and every breath sent stabbing pains through his ribs. But he was alive, which was more than he could say for the other passengers. The transport had been carrying 12 people to the new colony on Kepler 4 to be. From what he could see in the dim emergency lighting, he appeared to be the only survivor. The next few hours were a blur of pain and desperate survival instincts. Marcus managed to extract himself from the wreckage, activate his emergency beacon, and set up a basic shelter using debris from the ship. His scanner indicated that the planet's atmosphere was breathable, with slightly higher oxygen content than Earth normal. The temperature was comfortable, and there was no immediate radiation danger. Small mercies as night fell on the alien world. Marcus huddled in his makeshift shelter, trying to ignore the throbbing in his arm and the growing certainty that his beacon might never reach human space. The nearest Earth colony was over 200 light-years away, and the transport had been significantly off course when it crashed. He could be stranded here for months, or forever. The sound that woke him the next morning was unlike anything he had ever heard, a melodic humming that seemed to come from the very air around him. Marcus crawled out of his shelter and saw them approaching through the morning mist, beings that looked like living crystal formations, their translucent bodies catching and refracting the sunlight into rainbows of colored dot. They moved with a fluid grace that suggested intelligence, and as they drew closer, Marcus could see that their forms were roughly humanoid but elongated, standing nearly 8 feet tall. What appeared to be eyes, clusters of deeper crystal formations, focused on him with unmistakable curiosity rather than hostility. The largest of the beings stepped forward and did something that made Marcus question his sanity. It spoke, not through sound but directly into his mind. The voice was gentle, almost musical, carrying undertones of concern and compassion. "Injured Skywalker, we sense your pain. Do not fear us. We are Veiltheory, and we wish only to help." Marcus stared at the crystalline being, his engineering mind struggling to process what was happening. You can speak to me. Your thoughts are clear to us, as ours can be to you if you allow it. You are hurt and alone and afraid. We understand these things. I am Elder Thesara, and these are my people. We offer shelter and healing. Despite every survival instinct screaming warnings about trusting alien species, Marcus found himself drawn to the genuine warmth he sensed from these beings. The Veiltheory had no weapons that he could see, and their entire demeanor spoke of peaceful intentions. More importantly, his broken arm was getting worse, and infection was already setting in around his other wounds. I would be grateful for your help," Marcus said, both aloud and in his thoughts. What followed was unlike anything in Marcus's experience. The Veiltheory didn't simply treat his injuries. They healed them. Elder Thesara placed her crystalline hands on his broken arm, and Marcus watched in amazement as a soft, warm light emanated from her touch. The pain vanished, the swelling subsided, and within minutes his arm was completely functional again. "How is this possible?" Marcus asked, flexing his fingers in wonder. "We resonate with the life force that flows through all living things," Thesara explained as she moved to his other injuries. "Your species calls it bioelectricity. Though that term does not capture its true nature, we can guide it, encourage healing, and restore balance. It is our gift." Over the following days, Marcus was brought to the Veil-3 settlement, a remarkable community built into and around massive crystal formations that jutted from the planet's surface like frozen lightning. The architecture was breathtaking, with structures that seemed to grow organically from the living rock, their surfaces humming with energy that provided light, warmth, and power. The Veil-3 themselves were a revelation. Despite their alien appearance, they possessed a depth of wisdom and compassion that reminded Marcus of humanity at its best. They were natural healers and philosophers, their entire society built around the principles of harmony, growth, and the preservation of life. They had no military, no weapons of war, and no concept of conquest or domination. We have watched the stars from many cycles, Elder Thesara explained as she showed Marcus through their crystal gardens, where impossible plants from across the galaxy grew in perfect symbiosis. We have seen the ships of many species pass overhead, but we do not reveal ourselves too often. Contact with others brings violence and destruction. Then why did you help me? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. Thesara's crystalline features shifted, in what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of a smile. Because you were hurt and alone, and that was enough. Some things transcend fear, Marcus read. Compassion is one of them. As weeks passed, Marcus found himself becoming part of the Veil-3 community. His engineering background proved invaluable as he studied their crystal-based technology and helped solve problems that had puzzled them for generations. Their power distribution systems were inefficient, and Marcus showed them how to redesign the resonance chambers to increase output by 30%. Their water purification crystals were becoming corrupted, and Marcus developed a cleaning process that restored them to full functionality. In return, the Veil-3 taught him about their connection to the living energy of the planet, their methods of biological enhancement through crystal resonance, and their philosophy of existence. Marcus learned that they were one of the oldest sapient species in this region of the galaxy, having achieved spaceflight millions of years before humans had even evolved on Earth. Yet they had chosen to remain on their homeworld, dedicating themselves to understanding and preserving life rather than conquering and exploiting it. Your species is young, Thesara told him during one of their long conversations in the Crystal Gardens. But there is something special about humans. You adapt, you overcome, you refuse to surrender even when all hope seems lost. These are admirable qualities, but they can also be dangerous ones. Dangerous how? Marcus asked. Because such determination can lead to great good or great evil, depending on the path chosen. We have seen species with similar traits become conquerors, consuming everything in their path, but we have also seen them become protectors, guardians of life throughout the galaxy. The choice is always before you. Marcus spent 3 months with the Veil-3 before the rescue ship arrived. His emergency beacon had finally been detected by a deep space patrol, and the Earth vessel Constellation dropped out of hyperspace. In the outer system, as Marcus prepared to leave, he felt a profound sadness at departing these gentle beings who had shown him such kindness. I will never forget what you've done for me, Marcus told the assembled Veil-3 community as he stood before their crystalline temple. You saved my life, but more than that, you showed me what it means to truly care for others without expecting anything in return. Elder Thesara approached and placed her hands on Marcus's shoulders. And you have shown us that not all species that reach for the stars do so with conquest in their hearts. You have been a bridge between our peoples, Marcus read. Perhaps one day, when your species is ready, that bridge will serve a greater purpose. If you ever need help, if your people are ever in danger, I give you my word as a human being. We will come. We don't abandon our friends. The Veil-3 hummed in harmonious approval, their bodies glowing with the warm light that Marcus had come to associate with their deepest emotions. We will remember, Skywalker, and we will hope that day never comes. As the rescue shuttle carried Marcus away from Veil-3, he looked back at the crystal spires rising from the planet's surface and made a silent vow. Humanity owed these beings a debt that could never be fully repaid, but if the opportunity ever arose, he would make sure it was honored. The Veil-3 had taught him that compassion was not weakness, that wisdom sometimes meant choosing peace over progress, and that the true measure of a species was not in what it could conquer, but in what it chose to protect. Marcus Reed returned to Earth forever changed by his encounter with the Veil-3. In his official reports, he described Veil-3 as an uninhabitable world with no strategic value, protecting the gentle crystalline beings from the sometimes ruthless expansion of human civilization. But in his personal files, carefully encrypted and hidden, he maintained detailed records of everything he had learned about their location, their culture, and their remarkable abilities. 15 years would pass before those files would become the most important documents in human space. And Marcus would discover that some debts transcend time, distance, and the vast darkness between the stars. The Veil Theory had sheltered one human when he needed help most. Soon, humanity would be called upon to shelter an entire species, and the true strength of human gratitude would be tested among the stars. The reckoning arrives when the past catches up. 15 years had transformed Marcus Reed from a stranded engineer into one of humanity's most respected voices in colonial defense. His office on Luna Station overlooked the sprawling shipyards, where Earth's newest generation of starships took shape, their hulls gleaming under the harsh light of unfiltered sunlight. At 53, Marcus bore the weathered look of someone who had spent decades solving humanity's most challenging problems in the hostile environment of space. The walls of his office were decorated with commendations from dozens of colonial worlds, each representing a crisis he had helped resolve or a disaster he had helped prevent. The pride of place was given to a small crystal formation that sat on his desk, catching the light and casting rainbow patterns across his work surface. It was a gift from Elder the Sara, a reminder of 3 months that had changed his understanding of what it meant to be truly civilized. Marcus had never spoken publicly about his time on Veilthara. The official records still listed it as an uninhabitable world with no strategic value, effectively protecting the Veil Theory from unwanted attention. In the 15 years since his rescue, human expansion had accelerated dramatically. Earth now controlled over 200 colony worlds, and humanity's appetite for new territories seemed insatiable. Marcus had seen what happened to peaceful species who got in the way of human progress, and he was determined to spare the Veil Theory that fate. The priority alert that shattered his morning routine came through on a frequency that hadn't been used in over a decade. Marcus stared at his communication console as the quantum encryption protocols identified the source as somewhere in the Veilthara system. His heart rate spiked as he activated the secure channel, and suddenly Elder the Sara's familiar mental voice filled his consciousness with a clarity that transcended the vast distance between them. Marcus Reed, friend of the Veil Theory, we call upon the debt of kindness between our peoples. We are dying, and you are our only hope. The message that followed painted a picture of impending catastrophe that chilled Marcus to his core. The Scarix Empire, a militaristic species known for their ruthless expansion policies, had discovered Veilthara during a routine survey mission. Unlike humanity's scattered colonial efforts, the Scarix operated with the systematic efficiency of a military machine, consuming entire star systems and enslaving or exterminating any species they encountered. Elder the Sara's mental voice carried undertones of despair that Marcus had never heard from the normally serene Veil Theory. They came in great ships that blotted out our sun. Marcus Reed, their leader, one they call War Commander Vorth, delivered an ultimatum to our people. We must submit to Scarix rule and provide them with our healing abilities for their military campaigns or face complete extermination. We have 7 of your days to decide. Marcus felt his hands clench into fist as the implications sank in. The Veil Theory possessed healing abilities that could revolutionize military medicine, making Scarix warriors nearly impossible to kill permanently. In the wrong hands, their gifts could tip the balance of power in the galaxy and unleash decades of unprecedented warfare. We are a peaceful people, Marcus Reed. We have no weapons, no armies, no defenses against such aggression. Our crystal cities cannot withstand orbital bombardment, and our people do not know how to fight. If we submit, we become tools of conquest and death. If we resist, we die. There is no third option, unless our human friend remembers his promise. The quantum channel fell silent, leaving Marcus alone with the weight of an impossible decision. He looked out at the shipyards where Earth's newest battleships were under construction, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to protect human interest across the galaxy. The irony was brutal. Humanity had the military power to help the Veil Theory, but Earth's political leadership would never authorize such action for a species that offered no strategic advantage. Marcus spent the next hour reviewing everything he knew about the Scarix Empire. They were formidable opponents, controlling nearly 50 star systems through a combination of superior technology and absolute ruthlessness. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and complete domination, and they had never been successfully resisted by any species they had chosen to conquer. Taking them on would be tantamount to declaring war on one of the galaxy's most dangerous civilizations. But as Marcus stared at the crystal formation on his desk, he remembered Elder the Sara's words from 15 years ago. Some things transcend fear, Marcus Reed. Compassion is one of them. The emergency session of the Earth Colonial Council convened within 6 hours of Marcus's request. The council chamber was a testament to humanity's growing influence in the galaxy, with representatives from all major colonial sectors and military commands. Admiral Patricia Hayes, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, presided over the meeting with the grim efficiency that had made her legendary among the colonial defense forces. Director Reed, Admiral Hayes began, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had spent decades making life and death decisions. Your request for emergency military intervention is unprecedented. You're asking us to commit Earth's naval forces to defend a species that most of this council has never heard of, against an enemy that could potentially devastate human space in retaliation. Marcus stood before the assembled representatives, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. 15 years ago, I was stranded on what our records list as an uninhabitable world. The truth is that Vale Thara is home to one of the most remarkable species in the galaxy. The Vale saved my life, asked for nothing in return, and have spent the years since then living in peaceful isolation. Now they face extinction, and they've turned to us for help. Senator Rebecca Walsh from the Centauri colonies leaned forward, her expression skeptical. Director Reed, while we all respect your service record, you're asking us to risk a war with the Scarix Empire for a species that has contributed nothing to human civilization. What strategic value does this intervention serve? The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Marcus felt the familiar fire that had driven him through decades of impossible challenges. Strategic value. Senator, I'll tell you about strategic value. The Vale possess healing abilities that could revolutionize medicine across human space. They understand crystal-based technology that could advance our power generation by centuries. But more than that, they represent something that humanity claims to value, the principle that advanced civilizations protect those who cannot protect themselves. Admiral Hayes consulted her tactical displays, her expression troubled. Director Reed, even if we accept your assessment of Vale capabilities, the military reality is sobering. The Scarix Empire fields over 300 capital ships, with technology that matches or exceeds our own. A direct confrontation could result in massive casualties, and potentially expose Earth itself to retaliation. Marcus had anticipated this objection, and his response carried the conviction of someone who had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Admiral, I'm not asking for a direct confrontation with the entire Scarix Empire. War Commander Vorth has deployed a single battle group to intimidate the Vale, approximately 20 ships. If we move fast and hit hard, we can establish a defensive perimeter around Vale Thara before the Scarix can reinforce. The debate that followed was intense and sometimes heated, with council members arguing about everything from resource allocation to interstellar law. Some representatives supported the intervention on humanitarian grounds, while others worried about the precedent it would set for Earth's foreign policy. The military leadership was divided between those who saw an opportunity to test human capabilities against a major galactic power, and those who feared the consequences of such a test. Finally, President Catherine Morrison, who had risen from colonial administrator to Earth's highest office during Marcus's tenure as Director of Colonial Defense, called for order. The fundamental question before us is simple: what kind of species do we want to be? Are we conquerors who ignore suffering when it's convenient? Or are we protectors who honor our debts regardless of the cost? She looked directly at Marcus as she continued. Director Reed, you've served humanity with distinction for over 20 years. You've saved more lives and prevented more disasters than any other single individual in our colonial history. If you believe this is the right thing to do, then you have my support. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Marcus had hoped, but decisive enough to authorize action. Earth's Colonial Council approved the deployment of the Third Fleet to the Vale Thara system, with orders to establish a defensive perimeter and negotiate with the Scarix forces for a peaceful resolution. Admiral Hayes approached Marcus after the session, her expression grim but determined. Director Reed, I hope you understand what you've just set in motion. We're about to pick a fight with one of the most dangerous militaries in the galaxy. Based on your word that these Vale are worth the risk? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Admiral, 15 years ago, those aliens risked their own safety to save one human life. They didn't ask what I could do for them or whether I was worth saving. They helped because it was the right thing to do. Now, it's our turn to prove that humanity understands the value of that kind of compassion. The mobilization of Earth's Third Fleet was the largest military operation in human history. Over 150 ships of various classes converged on the staging area at Wolf 359. Their crews working around the clock to prepare for a battle that could determine humanity's place in the galactic community. The fleet included Earth's newest and most powerful vessels, including the dreadnought Indomitable and the carrier Yorktown, along with supporting cruisers, destroyers, and specialized support ships. As the fleet prepared for departure, Marcus found himself aboard the Indomitable as Admiral Hayes' special advisor. The bridge of the massive warship hummed with activity, as officers coordinated the complex logistics of moving such a large force across interstellar distances. Through the main viewport, Marcus could see the other ships of the fleet arranged in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. All ships report ready for hyperspace transition, the navigation officer announced. Admiral Hayes looked at Marcus one final time. Director Reed, once we make this jump, there's no going back. Are you certain this is the right course of action? Marcus thought about Elva the Sara and the gentle beings who had shown him what true compassion looked like. He thought about the crystal gardens of Vale Thara and the wisdom of a species that had chosen peace over conquest for millions of years. And he thought about the promise he had made as he left their world, that humanity would come if they ever needed help. Admiral, some debts transcend politics and strategy. The Veil theory showed me what it means to be truly civilized. If we abandon them now, we abandon everything that makes us worth defending. Hayes nodded slowly, then turned to her navigation. Officer, all ships initiate hyperspace transition. Course set for the Vale Thara system. Let's go keep a promise. The stars elongated into brilliant streaks as Earth's third fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity toward its greatest test of character and courage. Behind them, Earth's orbital defense stations stood ready for possible Scarix retaliation, while across human space, colonial militias prepared for the worst. But aboard the ships racing toward Vale Thara, there was only determination and the unshakable conviction that some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the cost. In the depths of space, War Commander Vorth's Scarix battle group continued its methodical bombardment of Vale Thara's outer moon, a demonstration of power designed to break the Vale Thara's will to resist. The crystalline beings huddled in their cities, their harmonious songs now filled with grief and fear as they awaited either salvation or extinction. The reckoning was coming, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not its military might or technological prowess, but its absolute refusal to abandon those who had shown them kindness. The shield of Earth humans don't abandon their friends. Third Fleet dropped out of hyperspace, at the edge of the Vale Thara system like avenging angels emerging from the void. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as her tactical displays populated with contact markers that made her blood run cold. The Scarix battle group was larger than intelligence had predicted. 37 ships arranged in a perfect siege formation around the planet, their weapons batteries already engaged in the systematic destruction of Vale Thara's orbital infrastructure. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Scarix flagship, the communications officer reported. They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our business in the system. Hayes exchanged a look with Marcus, who stood beside her command chair with an expression of grim determination. Through the main viewport, they could see the crystal spires of Vale Thara's surface cities glowing like jewels against the planet's blue-green continents. Even from this distance, the scars of orbital bombardment were visible as dark craters marring the world's pristine surface. Open a channel to the Scarix commander, Hayes ordered. This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Colonial Navy. By order of the United Earth Government, you are ordered to cease all hostile activities against the Vale Thara people and withdraw from the system immediately. The response came in the form of harsh, guttural laughter that echoed across the bridge. War Commander Vorth's image appeared. On the main screen, a reptilian humanoid with scales that seemed to absorb light, cold golden eyes, and ceremonial scars covering his massive frame. When he spoke, his voice carried the arrogance of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. Humans, your reputation for foolish bravery precedes you. I am War Commander Vorth of the Scarix Empire, and this world is now under my jurisdiction. You have one opportunity to withdraw before I demonstrate why the Scarix have never known defeat. Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying across the channel with unwavering conviction. War Commander, the Vale Thara are under Earth's protection. They saved the life of one of our people, and we don't abandon our friends. Leave now, or we'll make you leave. Vorth's golden eyes fixed on Marcus with predatory interest. The human who corrupted these creatures with ideas of resistance. You should have stayed dead in the wreckage of your pathetic transport. No matter, today you will join the Vale Thara in extinction, and the galaxy will learn the price of defying the Scarix Empire. The channel closed with finality, and Admiral Hayes immediately began issuing orders to her fleet. All ships, battle. Formation Delta. Carriers launch all fighters. Cruiser squadrons take flanking positions. We're going to hit them hard and fast before they can coordinate a response. The battle that followed would be remembered as one of the most decisive engagements in galactic history. The human fleet moved with a coordination and ferocity that caught the Scarix completely off guard. Unlike the methodical, predictable tactics they had encountered from other species, the humans employed what could only be described as controlled chaos. Fighter squadrons from the Yorktown and Constellation swarmed through the Scarix formation, like angry wasps, their pilots executing maneuvers that violated every principle of conventional space combat. They flew through debris fields, used destroyed ships as cover, and coordinated attacks with a level of improvisation that left Scarix gunners struggling to track their movements. Meanwhile, the human capital ships demonstrated a brutal efficiency in ship-to-ship combat. The Indomitable engaged 3 Scarix heavy cruisers simultaneously, its weapons batteries firing in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully calculated to maximize damage while minimizing exposure to return fire. The Dreadnought's armor absorbed devastating hits that would have crippled lesser vessels, while its own guns systematically dismantled the enemy ships piece by piece. Human vessels are using unconventional attack patterns, reported Commander. Decks from the Scarix flagship. Our targeting computers cannot predict their movements. They fight without honor or discipline. War Commander Vorth watched in growing fury as his perfectly organized battle line was torn apart by what appeared to be complete tactical anarchy. Impossible. No species fights like this. Order all ships to concentrate fire on their flagship. If we can destroy their command structure, their chaotic tactics will collapse. But the Scarix had made a fatal error in assuming that human military doctrine followed the same rigid hierarchies they were accustomed to. When 6 Scarix battleships focused their combined firepower on the Indomitable, the other human vessels didn't fall into disarray. Instead, they adapted instantly, with individual ship commanders taking initiative and coordinating attacks through rapid communication bursts. That confused Scarix intelligence officers. The turning point came when Marcus activated a communication channel to Elder Thesara. On the planet's surface, Thesara, I need you to listen carefully. I'm going to tell you how to turn your crystal technology into a weapon, but only for today. Only to protect your people. The Veil 3 leader's mental voice carried notes of distress and confusion. Marcus, read. We do not know the ways of violence. Our crystals heal and preserve life. They cannot be used to destroy. They don't have to destroy, Marcus replied, urgently, watching as Scarix reinforcements moved to encircle the human fleet. But they can shield. Remember what you taught me about resonance harmonics. If you can synchronize all the crystal formations on your planet to the same frequency, you can create a defensive field that will protect you from orbital bombardment. Working with frantic efficiency, Marcus transmitted the technical specifications to the Thesara while simultaneously coordinating with Admiral Hayes to provide covering fire for the planet. The process required precise calculations based on Veilthur's magnetic field, the arrangement of crystal formations across the planet's surface, and the harmonic frequencies that the crystals could sustain. Below on the planet's surface, thousands of Veilthuri joined their consciousness, in a harmony unlike anything their species had ever attempted. Elder Thesara stood in the great crystal temple at the heart of their capital city, her hands pressed against the primary resonance chamber, as she guided her people through the complex synchronization process. The effect was visible from space as every crystal spire on Veilthara began to glow with increasing intensity. The light spread from formation to formation like ripples across a pond, until the entire planet sparkled like a gem against the darkness of space. Then, as the final harmonic fell into place, a shimmering barrier of energy erupted from the planet's surface, forming a protective shell that extended far into orbital space. War Commander Vorth ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their firepower on the energy barrier, but their weapons simply dissipated against the crystal shield like rain against a window. The Scarix battle line, already decimated by the human assault, found itself trapped between Earth's aggressive fleet and an impenetrable planetary defense system. Impossible, Vorth snarled as he watched his weapons fail against the crystalline barrier. No primitive species possesses such technology. They're not primitive, Admiral Hayes replied over an open channel as her ships moved in for the final assault. They're just peaceful. There's a difference. The remaining Scarix vessels, faced with total tactical defeat, attempted to retreat toward the system's edge. But the human fleet had anticipated this move, and destroyer squadrons were already in position to intercept. The battle ended with the destruction of 31 Scarix ships and the capture of 6 others, including War Commander Vorth's flagship. In the aftermath of the battle, as human medical teams worked alongside Veilthuri healers to treat the wounded, Marcus stood in Elder Thesara's crystal garden for the first time in 15 years. The crystalline being approached him with movements that conveyed profound gratitude and joy. Marcus, read, friend of our people, you have kept your promise beyond all expectation. We are alive because of human honor and courage. Marcus looked around at the alien paradise that had sheltered him so long ago, now protected by the guns of Earth's most powerful fleet. Thesara, you saved one human who was lost and afraid. Today, humanity returned that favor 1,000-fold. This is what civilization looks like, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The establishment of Earth Defense Station Vale-Thara occurred within 6 months of the battle, a massive orbital facility that served as both a military base and a center for human Vale-3 cooperation. The station's construction represented the largest joint venture between humanity and an alien species, with Vale-3 crystal technology integrated into human engineering to create something entirely new. Admiral Hayes, now commanding the station as Earth's first interspecies defense coordinator, addressed the Joint Council during the station's dedication ceremony today. We establish a new principle in interstellar relations. Earth will stand with any species that demonstrates the courage to extend kindness to others. The Vale-3 showed us what true civilization looks like, and we will ensure that their light continues to shine among the stars. The ripple effects of humanity's victory at Vale-Thara spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had cowered before Scaric's aggression began to resist, knowing that Earth's fleet stood ready to support those who chose to fight for their freedom. The balance of power in the galaxy shifted dramatically as humanity emerged not as conquerors, but as protectors of the innocent. Marcus Reed, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Vale-3, found himself at the center of a revolution in interspecies relations. His office, built into the living crystal of the Sara's temple, became a pilgrimage site for diplomatic missions from across the galaxy. Beings who had never heard of humanity now spoke with reverence about the species that would risk everything to honor a debt of kindness. The humans fight differently than any species we have encountered, reported as a lengthy intelligence officer to his superiors after visiting the defense station. They do not fight for territory or resources or dominance. They fight for their friends, and that makes them more dangerous than any empire. On quiet evenings, Marcus would walk through the Crystal Gardens with Elder the Sara, discussing philosophy and the future of galactic civilization. The Vale-3 had begun sharing their healing knowledge with human medical researchers, while human engineers worked to understand the deeper principles behind crystal technology. The collaboration was producing breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. Your people have given us something we thought was lost forever, the Sara told him during one such walk. Hope for so long. We believed that the galaxy belonged to the strong and violent, but humanity has shown us that compassion can be stronger than conquest, that protecting others is a source of power rather than weakness. Marcus smiled as he watched human children playing with young Vale-3 in the gardens, their laughter echoing through the crystal chambers. Asara, 15 years ago you taught me that some things transcend fear. Compassion is one of them today. Humanity learned that lesson well enough to pass it on to others. The legacy of Earth's defense of Vale-Thara extended far beyond military victory, across human space. The story of Marcus Reed and the Vale-3 became required study in schools and military academies. Children learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect. Officers were taught that honor meant keeping promises even when it was dangerous to do so. The Scaric's empire, faced with a galaxy that no longer feared them and a human fleet that had proven their tactics could be defeated, gradually withdrew from their aggressive expansion. War Commander Vorth, held in comfortable captivity on Vale-Thara, spent his days trying to understand how a species barely 2 centuries old had accomplished what the galaxy's oldest civilizations have failed to achieve. You fought without logic, he complained to Marcus during one of their conversations in the station's detention facility. Your tactics violated every principle of military science. How did you know they would work? Marcus looked at the defeated Scaric's commander with something approaching pity. Vorth, you made the same mistake that bullies always make. You assumed that because someone chooses peace, they don't know how to fight. The Vale-3 chose peace because they were wise, not because they were weak. And humanity chose to fight because we don't abandon our friends, not because we wanted a war. As years passed, the Earth Defense Station at Vale-Thara became a symbol of hope for species throughout the galaxy. The partnership between humans and Vale-3 produced medical advances that eliminated diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia, energy technologies that made interstellar travel safer and more efficient, and diplomatic protocols that helped resolve conflicts without bloodshed. Marcus Reed, now in his 70s, often stood on the station's observation deck and marveled at how one act of kindness had changed the course of galactic history. The Vale-3 had saved one human, asking nothing in return. In response, humanity had committed its entire fleet to protecting them from extinction. That single act of gratitude had transformed Earth from an ambitious but largely ignored colonial power into the galaxy's most respected protector of the innocent. The crystal formation on his desk, now joined by dozens of similar gifts from species across the galaxy, continued to cast rainbow patterns across his work. Each one represented another world under Earth's protection, another species that had learned the meaning of human gratitude. The debt had been paid, but the friendship would last forever. And across the galaxy, beings who had never met a human spoke with reverence about the species that proved that true. Strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the end, the Veil Theory had not simply sheltered one human. They had taught an entire species what it meant to be worthy of the stars.